Hello, welcome to Talks at Brickstone, your one-stop podcast for research, insights, and interviews on thought leadership issues relating to Africa's infrastructure, built environment, and natural environment. I'm your host, Femi, Awofala. In this episode, we'll be looking at business plans for your large-scale project. So sometimes you have large-scale projects in your organization. Maybe you're a manufacturing company or an oil and gas company. You basically have, to set up a team to focus on a refinery project or in a gas project or a solar project and things. And these are not things that are your normal business plans in your normal, everyday organization. Although this varies from one organization to another, large projects typically include things that have to do with energy infrastructure projects, and they have a number of characteristics. Typically, they are incorporated under a special purpose vehicle. They have longer durations, often lasting 18 months up to 3 years and even more. And larger teams are involved. Sometimes you have up to 20 or 30 people involved in a large-scale project being initiated by a company. And also it has a greater need for a greater budget and also resource allocation. Most times the tasks are a bit complex, and sometimes if you don't have a business plan already done from inception, things get a lot muddled up. And people now ask that, why are large-scale projects so difficult to manage? The reasons include technical challenges, changes in design, increasing costs, disputes over responsibility. This complexity usually increases with the scale of the project and can give rise to uncertainty and also difficulties, and sometimes those projects are abandoned. We at Brickstone, we argue that one of the ways to manage uncertainties in these large-scale projects is to have a very well-documented business plan from the beginning of the project. What more, we believe that these opinions and issues we'll be discussing in this podcast now will provide the right set of knowledge and understanding for the need for a large-scale, a business plan for your large-scale project. And why is this key? One is the fact that it provides you a clarification of your direction. Why are we doing this large-scale project in the company? Where are we getting the funding from? What exactly is the need for this project? So that's one of the reasons. Second reason is the fact that you want to be able to manage your project effectively. And the business plan acts as a management tool which can be referred to regularly to ensure the project is on course and is meeting the goals and targets and also the operational milestones set by the executive management for the project. For a large-scale project, you must have a very thorough business plan that is clear, concise, and compelling to understand. It must describe the project's value proposition, it must generate investor interest, and build confidence for your investors. Also, your business plan will help you in having your investor meetings and make it very easy for you to talk about this project with your investors at any point in time. Remember, I said once again that these large-scale projects vary in size and also in complexity. They could also be, a new plant for your brewery. It could be a new plant for your refinery. It could be a new location you want to try and push into. These are the things you need to put into consideration to ensure that you have your business plan, well documented for your large-scale project. And typically, it could be in any form, but we will look at basically 10 basic steps. One, we need to introduce the project. We need to define the problem you are trying to solve based on your project. And we need to identify the solution you are providing. Number 4 is your company status. Number 5 is your market demand and customers. Number 6 is the competitive landscape of your product or service. Number 7 is your business and revenue model clearly identified. Number 8 is your management team. Number 9 is your financial projections and funding plan. Number 10 is your milestones. And number 11 is a very thorough summary and recommendation and conclusion. I'll start from the very first one, which is your introduction. You must be able to introduce your projects and your business in a very comprehensive and compelling manner. You need to briefly introduce yourself, your company. You need to give an overview of what your company has been doing over the last 5 years. You need to explain what exactly is this large-scale project is required for your company at this point in time. What exactly your company does must be clearly stated. Once you introduce this in the beginning part of the business plan, it gives an investor a very clear understanding of who you are and what you do. The next thing we will go into is the second step, which is the problem identification. The problem needs to be properly described to your stakeholders for them to understand what problem you are trying to solve. You might be building a waste recycling system to solve a waste problem. You might be looking at doing something related to having a new road development that is solving a road challenge. You might be doing a solar plant that is solving a power problem. So the problem needs to be identified. You need to describe how significant and prevailing the problem may be currently. You need to also describe why now is the right time for a solution for this problem. You need to provide a problem scenario that provides a basis for your company's product or service to be accepted. Now, when we do that, we now move to the third step, which is the solution description. You need to show the solution of your project. What exactly is your project providing, and how is this being solved in a sustainable manner? Sustainability is one of the very key important elements for investors globally nowadays, whereby they want to see a solution that is environmentally viable, is legally viable, ethically, and also socially, and also does not possess any environmental danger, to the environment during the course of your project. And if there's any problem with the environment, you must be able to also provide a response plan. So your solution should also show, this with graphics. You need to show this with graphics and pictures, and also show how it's being done. You also probably could also give us case studies of where this project has been done in other parts of Africa, and why now, it's important for you to do it now. You also need to list your barriers to entry in terms of patents. You need to provide a practical example of how your project will work and your product will also work. Now you move to the fourth step, which is, what have you done till date? Have you established partnerships? If this is a PPP project that involves you having a sort of like a private-public partnership, what kind of agreements do you have with your counterparties, be it government or a governing agency, for you to have the right to do this project? 2 is, do you have the land already, or are you planning to secure the land with funding? You need to provide us with clear status of the legal rights or the legal basis upon which the project will be established. Once that is done, the next thing is to look at investors and provide your project value proposition to understand what exactly is your project all about in terms of the value it gives to the investors, and also provide a gap analysis showing that, if this project is not done, this is the way the environment will be degraded. If this project is not done, this is the way the environment will be reduced in quality over the next period of time, and this is the kind of losses we'll be having in the environment. Now, once that is done, the next step is for us to look at our market demand and also look at our customers. For example, you could have a project that speaks well to maybe the energy industry or in terms of providing, power in itself. But however, are people ready to pay for it? How is your demand? What's your demand strategy? Are you going to sign an offtake agreement with your offtaker? Or are you going to just, go into the mass market and make sure that people pay as at when due to get the product or the project? So there is need for a demand assessment study to look at what are the factors or patterns that will clearly provide, the right scale or the right type of customers for your project. And this could help you also relocate your project. For example, you could have a processing facility for a farm that you feel, is of the right size and right need now, but the people who need that facility, the customers who you attract more might be in another location, maybe for example close to their raw materials. So it might change your decision to relocate the project to where is closer to your customers and not necessarily where you have land. So this is one of the key things that projects fail with. You have someone doing a poultry farm or a poultry processing facility in an obscure area that there's no outgrower process for poultry. You have people setting up projects in the wrong location. So having a demand and assessment is critical, in the processing itself. So once we are done with the sixth step, which is the demand, we will also still look at issues related to competitive advantage. Now, just to talk about the demand again before we move into competitive advantage, there may be some times where there is need for you to have what we call a customer feedback or some sort of surveys or market research being done to further buttress that there's real demand for this, because lenders or investors want to see your market research done to really substantiate your figures that you claim to have in terms of your revenue. So it is key for the market demand to be backed by a market research. We now move into competition, which is the seventh step. Now, in terms of competition, I'm sure that, except you are doing a novel project that has never been done before, you always have competitors. You always have substitutes. You always have the right type of, you always have people who are looking at doing what you are doing or have done it before and things. Now, it's nothing to be afraid of, but the most important thing you need to do is to make sure you profile these competitors in your business plan. You make sure you describe their product and service. You also show the competitors' pricing strategy. How are they priced? What kind of this project they did? How did they come up with their entry prices into the market? This will help you to also describe your own go-to-market strategy in itself, and I'll come to that in the next two slides. Now, there's also need for you to also clearly identify the alliances and the partnership and channels you need to have for this project in order for it to be successful. Once that is now done, we will look at positioning this project from a point of view of market positioning. Now, when you analyze the competitors, you will see that some people have some level of strengths. Some other competitors have some kind of weaknesses. Some competitors are competing on price. Some competitors are competing on quality. Some competitors are competing on distance. So there are a mirage of different criteria upon which these competitors compete. What you need to do is to choose yours. You don't have to, have an integrated strategy that I'm competing on this angle, I'm competing on this angle. You need to clearly say, I'm going to compete along these lines. And because your company or your promoters have some level of strengths, you will build your competitive positioning based on your strengths, not on the strengths you claim to acquire in future. You have to have that strength already. Maybe you have a very good distribution channel. You're going to use your distribution channel to sell your products based on your existing channels you have today. Or you have, a strong brand that, you could use this new product to, to piggyback on, to use to sell, the new types of things you are doing today. Based on this, there is need for you to now have what we call a more overall business strategy. Having looked at your value proposition, your market research, your competitive advantage, then your business model now emerges. You have people talk about business model, but business model does not come, as a skyrocket. It evolves, and it evolves based on how you see the market and how best you believe you can compete. How will you sell your product or services? How will the company generate revenue? And how will our sales cycle be? Will it be a long sales cycle? Will it be a short sales cycle? And how can we ensure that we are always having working capital at any point in time? So having said all this, there will be need for you to have a very thorough and comprehensive business model and marketing strategy. Then also, within that space of your business model, you will now be able to say, for this project I'm doing, which is producing this product, this will be my pricing strategy, this will be my gross margin, and this is how I want to assess my customers. It's clear that your business model may also evolve upon starting the business after your project has been funded. But however, you must have a plan at any point in time. There mustn't be anything that, there wasn't any plan and we're just hoping that when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. No, there must be a plan. And your business plan consultant will be able to advise you on how best to position this product based on the project you've done. So it's clear that having all this, and you now, based on your initial analysis and things, you now go to the step 9, which is your management team. You need to have a proper organogram that describes how this project will be managed. Who is going to report to who? What level of reporting do we need? And a number of things. So that being said, we'll move into the 10th aspect of things, which is your financial projections. And for the financial projections, it's very clear. If you have any plants or machinery or large-scale project that you are developing, you must have what we call capacity utilization. You must know how much you can produce. So, based on how much you can produce and what is your target production, which can also vary based on your market studies and things, you basically will know what your cost of production will be. And this is an area where a lot of companies, get distressed upon starting a project because they never estimated the cost of production almost accurately at the beginning itself, because you have your original equipment manufacturers. You know what this thing will cost you to operate. You know how much diesel you need to power. You know how much staffing things you need. So it's very important that you need to really cost it out. And don't get too carried away on revenue for large scale projects. It's really good to do about revenue, but at the end of the day, if you get the cost right, the market will always reward you, because you can definitely play, a more aggressive pricing strategy once your costing, is clearly defined. Having said this, you also try and look at what your break even is in terms of the quantities you need to have. And this, your break even point, will also help you to understand how much volume do we need to sell, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, for us to properly break even. Then also in your projections, you need to give very full disclosure on what your use of funds will be. Who is buying this? How much is it going to cost us? And what are we spending the money on? Some investors like to see a very clear level of detail in this. We are importing machines from Brazil. We are getting new staff. We are getting working capital from this bank. We are doing this and that. There mustn't be anything hidden in terms of business plan development for large-scale projects. You need to have very clear and detailed use of proceeds to provide that confidence to investors that, you've not missed anything out. And having said all this, we come to the space of, looking at milestones in itself, so there needs to be like a project implementation plan showing the various milestones and timelines we need to achieve on a step-by-step process. When do we want to conclude the research? When do we want to start doing our first pilot studies or pilot production? When do we move to site and things like that? All that needs to be laid out clearly. And if you go through this process I've mentioned now for your large scale project, nothing will come to you as a surprise, because you'll have thought everything through. You'll have thought the plans through. You'll have known what is required now. You'll have known what the competitors are doing. You'll have known how best to position your projects. And time again, we have development banks, lend people money because they have collateral. But however, what is important is that the entrepreneur must know his business. He must be able to see it through. And now in future lending, in future investing, investors and lenders are looking for entrepreneurs who have seen this thing through, who understand what the project needs to take, what needs to be done for the project to meet its objectives. And the business plan does that for you. And having said all this, you basically will have the milestones timeline, which is the thing I mentioned before. And finally, we'll now go into, a summary, at the end of the day, which could be an executive summary, so to say. It can also be at the beginning, which you basically have, very, very small and bullet points talking about the opportunity, what the product is, what's our competitive advantage, what's our marketing approach, what's our team, and a number of things. And you conclude your business plan. Now, time and time again, business plans for large-scale projects are very detailed. They are different from the business plans you do for your, everyday SME type project. These are projects that cost, way and over 2 billion naira, sometimes going as high as 10 billion in terms of, capital expenditure spent. So you mustn't, you must really, really, really see it through clearly. You must put it in granular form. It must be very clear and very achievable. And having said this, I hope you will basically have time to listen to this podcast again. And if not, you can look at the link below and fill a form to download this guide. You can have it with you and study it again. If you have any issues, you can always reach us at Brickstone. Our phone numbers are found there. And we hope you enjoy this current podcast, and we'll hear from you again. Thank you. I remain your host, Femi Awofala. Thank you.